given what we are seeing in the state of Texas. What measures need to be taken to ensure the reliability of wind turbines and wind power in extreme weather conditions?
I think, first of all, when we look at Texas, our thoughts goes to a lot of what has gone through individuals and the families under what is probably one of those not only decades, but almost a century experience in Texas. Under such conditions, I think it is maybe a little frightening to be out early and try to pinpoint what are the underlying, because there will be hugely resources going in to analyze what is actually some of the root causes behind this, and how has the grid operator ERCOT sort of handled this whole process throughout. So I think this is where we also can and will demonstrate through ERCOT what has actually worked particularly well from an energy source throughout this crisis.
Henrik, good morning to you. It's Manus in Dubai. We know a thing or two about renewables in this part of the world, but the experience that the world has just seen last week, does that set us back in the renewables story? Does that set us back in terms of the progress that the world was potentially making towards a more dynamic energy, renewables, electrification mix?
Not at all. And I just want to put maybe a few facts to both the listener and to you, Manus, as well, because when you look at this, today out of the total energy generation in the world, only 1% comes from wind across the world. And out of the electricity generation in the world today, 7% comes from wind. And when you then go and drill into Texas as such, ERCOT was planning to have somewhere between 1.8 gigawatt and 7 gigawatt working from renewable energy throughout this online, which is a peak winter season. And we have had 4 gigawatt working throughout that period of time. So may I just highlight and probably also point a little bit here the listener to, we were founded out of the Nordics, we founded out of Denmark. We used to have turbines working the whole year long, and also under severely weather conditions, where we are used to test and run turbines all the way down to minus both 30 and 35 degrees. So I would just sort of say here, it is a matter of, let's not try to pinpoint renewable. I think in that energy transition, we will be playing a role in it, and a very important role of that transition.
And I think Texas will probably start to winterize some of their wind turbines. What about storage? Could energy storage could have been better utilized in Texas?
I think we will all have to look at what could be better. But truth of it is, when you have a grid that potentially are suddenly loaded or overloaded under severe circumstances, then of course you will have that part of the grid either closes down or continues running. In this case, when you have a grid, the grid is actually able to either stop or accept energy storage, and also energy source comes in, and that is probably it's a complicated. And I think if there's one thing here which we experienced in a number of countries around the world, is that the upgrade and the investment into the grid and the modeling into the grid, that has happened right from in the East, in Asia Pacific, in Australia, and they have similar now going through in Europe. And that's also some of the things we just have to say. It's not just about the source of energy, it's also how to distribute and use that source out to the user, end of the day, into the families in their homes. So that whole grid capacity and also ability to run also in sometimes subgrids is becoming an increasingly important part of running grids and energy control.
Henrik, can we just talk a little bit about your business? You bought a minority stake in Modvion, the wind turbine made out of composite wood, a fascinating departure. What does that do for your carbon footprint, or what? Is this an adjunct, or is this a strategic vision?
I think if you look at the Vestas, if we again look at it, we say we will work with sustainability in everything we do, and of course we are blessed with that. When we put a turbine up, the turbine is basically carbon neutral after 4 months of its life, which means it will then, if it lives for 30 years, then it will be carbon negative for 29 and a half years after that. That also led to that Vestas, we were displacing 186 million tons of carbon from the turbines we have established around the world, equaling to 125 million vehicles. But when we then look at it, one of the things where we know we can displace more carbon as such is also how we manufacture, for instance, the turbine. And that, of course, we will have to drive the 4 months into day zero. And part of that, of course, is that we look into various innovations, and an innovation of where we could use wooden material to the tower, we believe is a very exciting part. But it is, as we also saying, it's something which will then be put into innovation as part of our Vestas ventures. And there we believe it's important to support and invest in some of these new innovators that comes along into the industry.